By the time she reached 60, Consuela had lived a long life filled with many smiles and happy incidents. Since her early youth, she had been married to the wonderful and loving Miguel, who gave her 4 beautiful children. Over time, his love for her didn't diminish. If anything, it seemed to grow stronger. Consuela's 2 sons and 2 daughters grew up to be intelligent, responsible, kind, and empathetic adults, each starting families of their own. Consuela's habit of working persisted. There was something about caring for others that kept her youthful at heart, giving her a reason to smile each day. The extra income never hurt either, allowing her to buy toys for her grandchildren, gifts for her husband and children, or to save up for special occasions or unforeseen expenses. The only thing Consuela lacked was regular contact with her extended family, as her children had moved to different cities and only visited her and Miguel on holidays and special occasions, which were always celebrated at their parental home. These gatherings became a cherished family tradition for Miguel and Consuela. A responsible, hard-working woman, Consuela found joy in her job at the mansion of local wealthy man Ramon, who worked in an international trading company. Though strict, Ramon was an excellent employer, and being a housekeeper in his household was like a fairy tale for Consuela. Ramon's family became a second home for her, and she cared for them with almost the same tenderness and care as she did for her own family. This allowed her to pour out all the kindness that had built up in her while her own children and grandchildren were far away. Carmen, Ramon's beautiful wife, often turned to Consuela for advice or kind words. Having lost her mother at a young age, Carmen found maternal warmth in Consuela, which she had always lacked. Carmen and Ramon's 6-year-old son also adored Consuela. She looked after the child like a real grandmother, always ready to help, entertain him, or secretly offer him something tasty before lunch to prevent any hunger-induced tantrums. Active and brave, Ricardo was the pride and joy of his parents. But like all children his age, he had an incredible imagination and a thirst for trying new things. Sometimes he portrayed himself as Zorro, fencing with a long sword in the mansion's courtyard. Sometimes he chased stray cats in the garden, imagining himself as a great hunter, and sometimes he defended the fair lady from attacks by invisible enemies. That fair lady was usually Consuela, always willing to play along for the sake of the boys' entertainment. How wonderful it is that we found such a great housekeeper! Carmen exclaimed once again, watching her little boy stride alongside Consuela, asking the woman about something. Ramon, as always a man of few words, didn't even look up from his tablet, reading news about the world of trade. He wasn't particularly interested in what was happening at home, constantly working to stay abreast of all the news and developments in international relations and economics. Carmen had already become accustomed to him sometimes seeming distant and contemplative. He was always thinking about how to increase his company's income. It was no wonder, after all, that he had worked so long and diligently to achieve his high position and earnings. Ramon trusted Consuela and Carmen, who was often at home, so much that he tried to minimize his involvement in raising his son. Perhaps the only thing Consuela disapproved of regarding Ricardo was the extreme overprotectiveness of his parents. They didn't allow Ricardo to run too often, forbade him to play soccer and other games that could lead to injuries. Consuela often lamented that the boy needed some way to expend his energy and that ordinary games would soon bore him, while sports would be very beneficial for him. After all, at 6 years old, children are not only full of energy but also very curious. Remembering her own children and grandchildren, Consuela understood that children at this age needed to start developing a love for active games and sports to grow up healthy and strong. Besides, boys should be a little reckless, at least a little, to learn not only something useful but also to get used to the idea that a scraped knee or a scratch is not a reason for bitter tears. Carmen, however, sheltered the boy as if he were made of porcelain, even though there was no reason for it. Ricardo's mother often said that she would be glad if the boy became interested in computer games or something similar so that she wouldn't worry about him. On that day, Carmen, as always, sat on the veranda while Consuela brought her fragrant coffee and fresh pastries. Ricardo, after sitting at the table for a while and enjoying refreshing lemonade and creamy pastries, ran off to play in the garden, first chasing butterflies that had taken a liking to the flowers, and then heading a bit farther away. The phone rang, and Carmen exchanged glances with Consuela, who was tidying up after the boy at the table. "Consuela, please keep an eye on Ricardo. I need to talk to my friend," Carmen smiled. Of course, Consuela was always happy to help and keep an eye on the little rascal. When Carmen headed into the house to discuss something with her friend, Consuela finished tidying up the table and went off to look for Ricardo, who had already managed to escape somewhere. And although Carmen was gone for a short while, when she returned, she found Ricardo sobbing and rushing towards her. "Mom! Mom! Let's go quickly," the child cried, grabbing his mother's hand and pulling her towards the garden. What happened? Carmen, now nervous, was surprised at the panic in her son's voice. "Consuela. She fell. She's in a lot of pain." Together they hurried to the housekeeper, who was lying on one of the distant paths of the garden, groaning in pain and clutching her already swollen leg. "Oh, my God!" Carmen exclaimed as she approached. She immediately began dialing her personal driver's number to take Consuela to the hospital. At the same time, Carmen tried to inspect the injured limb, while Ricardo took Consuela's hand to support her. "Oh, how clumsy of me!" Consuela muttered, grateful that Ricardo was acting like a true gentleman, gently stroking her hand. Quickly briefing the driver on the situation, Carmen set her phone aside, helping Consuela to sit more comfortably. "Everything will be fine, Consuela. Don't worry about anything," Carmen reassured her. She stayed with the housekeeper until the driver arrived. Together, they headed to the hospital. During the examination, the doctors confirmed the women's fears, saying that the leg was broken. Ricardo, still scared for the housekeeper, kept sniffling, comforted by his mother. Carmen struggled to calm her tearful son for a long time. In the evening, Carmen told her husband about what had happened. He, tired after work, deeply contemplated it but postponed dealing with the problem for the time being. His mind was preoccupied with the events of the day and the upcoming celebration, during which he was to host all the high-ranking officials from his company at their home. "Don't worry, Carmen, I'll call her tomorrow," Ramon reassured his wife as he headed off to rest. However, the next day, when he remembered about their housekeeper, he was still at home, so he called her to resolve the issue before heading to work. "Good morning, Consuela," he greeted her. "How are you feeling?" "Oh, I'm alive. They just put my leg in a cast, so I can't walk for now. They prescribed me a whole bunch of pills," the woman laughed, answering him honestly. "Forgive me for my clumsiness. But rest assured, Ramon, as soon as the bone heals, I'll go back to work. Don't rush, a broken bone is no joke. Forgive me for being so blunt, but honestly, I don't think you should work with such an injury. Take your time to recover properly, heal your leg. Don't worry about money, I'll write you a bonus check." "Oh, you're so understanding and generous." "No, you misunderstood me, Consuela. I'll cover your medical expenses and give you a bonus, but you don't need to come back to us anymore," Ramon explained. "Thank you for your service." For some time, Consuela remained silent, shocked by his words. When the initial shock wore off, she cautiously asked, "Are you firing me?" "Unfortunately, Consuela. It's time for you to think about retirement and rest. You're not young anymore. You understand." The man's usual cold business tone sounded slightly softer than usual, but it didn't make his words any more pleasant. "I understand," she replied, feeling very miserable about the news. "Get well soon, Consuela." "All the best to you." Ramon didn't even wait for a goodbye and hung up. The man didn't see that his son, who had been hiding on the stairs nearby, overheard the conversation. In the evening, Ramon told Carmen about contacting Consuela and discussing her injury and dismissal. His wife was unpleasantly surprised by the outcome and couldn't help but criticize her husband for his hasty decision. "Ramon, how could you fire Consuela?" Carmen exclaimed, frowning at her husband. She has served us faithfully for so many years, helped me with Ricardo, always ready to assist in any matter. And you. Enough. I'll give her a good bonus for her long service. She's not young anymore, and it's time for her to retire, the man waved off. Yes, she's a good woman, but what's the use if she broke her leg? We have a celebration coming up. We need people who can do their job. As much as Carmen disagreed with her husband's decision, she had to accept it. Consuela, though grieving the loss of her job, understood that it couldn't have been otherwise. Few employers would be willing to wait for a housekeeper to heal a broken leg and return to work as before. Her husband Miguel, who had taken time off work to take care of her until she got back on her feet, reassured her that it was time for her to start thinking about retirement and to rest properly. Eventually, they had both saved up a decent amount of money that they could spend on a trip to relax and unwind. You'll see, once you're feeling better, we'll go somewhere. It will definitely make you feel better. You'll relax, rest up, gather new experiences and strength. Miguel smiled. Yes, you're probably right. It's been a while since we've been anywhere. It's time we took a vacation somewhere, Consuela agreed with her husband. You've taken care of others for so many years, it's time to think about yourself. Don't worry about anything. Lying in bed, Consuela couldn't help but smile at how her husband was taking care of her, just like in the old days when she was pregnant. The tenderness and care with which Miguel still treated his wife spoke of his unwavering love for her, which couldn't help but warm her heart even considering the bad news she had received. Meanwhile, in Ramon's house, Carmen and Ricardo felt a sense of emptiness and quietness without Consuela. Ricardo became sad and withdrawn, often spending time in his room and unwilling to talk to his parents. Both Carmen and Ramon assumed that the boy simply missed the housekeeper, who had become a friend to him and replaced his grandmother. However, Ricardo felt guilty for Consuela getting into trouble because of his foolish actions. He overheard his father talking on the phone to Consuela, informing her that she was fired. If not for overhearing this conversation, the boy would have been calm and awaited his Aunt Consuela's return home, but the news that he wouldn't see the housekeeper anymore, who treated him like a beloved grandson, plunged Ricardo into deep sadness. He didn't know how to rectify the situation, how to tell his parents what really happened in the garden when Consuela got hurt. But he understood that if he remained silent, the kind Consuela would be out of work. And all because of him. For several days, Ricardo gathered courage until finally, on the third morning, he came to breakfast. He was ready not only to honestly tell his parents what had happened, but also to accept any punishment for his wrongdoing and the consequences that ensued. Mom, Dad. The boy stood before his parents. What's wrong, sweetheart? Carmen put down her phone, which she had been looking at moments ago. Ramon, on the other hand, just muttered thoughtfully, still not lifting his gaze from his tablet and sipping his coffee. I want to confess something to you, Ricardo hesitated, trying to gauge his parents' mood. Did you break something? Ramon asked the boy indifferently. No. Ricardo fell silent, and finally Ramon looked up from his tablet at his son. Come on, tell us. It's because of me that Consuela ended up in the hospital. The boy blurted out. His parents looked at him in surprise. Ramon set aside the tablet and placed a cup of coffee on the table, studying his son's face. What do you mean because of you? He asked. It's my fault that Consuela broke her leg. Ricardo burst into tears. It's not her fault. It's because I climbed where I shouldn't have, and she what? Carmen exchanged a glance with her husband. She caught me when I fell from the tree. She got hurt because of me. Please, forgive her. I begged her not to tell. It's because of me she said she slipped and fell. But it's my fault. She's not to blame. Wait, son. Ramon stood up from the table and approached his son, kneeling down in front of him to look into the boy's face. Are you saying she saved you when you fell? Yes. I fell from a branch on the tree. You told me not to climb there, but I did. The branch broke and I fell. Consuela caught me. The boy cried so hard that the words were difficult for him to get out. She's not to blame for breaking her leg. Please, Dad, don't fire her. She's so good. It took some time for the parents to calm their son down. But when he finally stopped sobbing uncontrollably and told them what had really happened, Carmen and Ramon pondered for a long time. As their son detailed what had happened, it turned out that everything was quite different from what they had thought. It wasn't the clumsiness of the elderly maid that caused her injury. On the day Carmen went into the house to have a conversation with her friend, Consuelo went to look for the boy who had managed to escape into the garden to watch over him while his mother was absent. "Ricardo? Where are you?" called the maid, worried that she couldn't see him anywhere. The woman became nervous, starting to run along the paths of the beautiful garden until Ricardo finally responded. "Aunt Consuela. I'm here." The maid stopped, trying to determine where the voice came from. "Where are you, you rascal?" she asked, feigning severity, expecting him to be hiding again, playing around. "I'm here." Up in the tree, the leaves rustled just ahead. When Consuela spotted the boy perched high in one of the tall trees, she gasped immediately. "Oh my God, Ricardo! What are you doing?" Consuela clutched her chest, shocked to see the young lad sitting on a high branch. "How many times have I told you not to climb trees? Get down this instant." "I'm fine," the boy called back, standing up on the branch, which dangerously bowed under his weight. The woman rushed towards the child, hearing the branch creak, and managed to jump to catch him before he fell onto the paved path of the garden. Thankfully, Consuela caught him just before he hit the ground. However, as she fell under the weight of his body, her leg twisted with a loud snap, indicating that something was wrong. The sudden surge of pain made Consuela groan, but despite that, she first sat up and checked the boy, who, though frightened by the fall, turned out to be unharmed. Embracing the child, the woman breathed a sigh of relief, but then immediately began to inspect her injured leg. A few moments later, she realized she wouldn't be able to stand on her own. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Consuela," the boy sobbed, seeing Consuela wincing in pain. "They told you not to climb trees," she sighed disapprovingly. "Why did you climb up there? Just please don't tell my parents I climbed up there. Please." "Oh, Ricardo, why would I tell them? I'll get scolded too for not keeping an eye on you." "Aunt Consuela." "Oh, Ricardo, the important thing is that you're not hurt. Everything else is trivial." "You're hurt, Consuela. What can I do to help?" The bewildered boy didn't even know how to assist the woman who was rubbing her injured leg. "Go get your mother, boy. Tell her I slipped and fell." Consuela tried to smile at him. "And don't tell her you fell from the tree. Go. Hurry." And so Ricardo ran to fetch his mother, finding her returning to the veranda to finish her coffee. Quickly informing her of the mishap, Ricardo and his mother hurried to Consuela, also dialing the driver's number along the way. Having said all this, Ricardo was about to plead with his parents again to bring Consuela back, but his father gently smiled at the boy and patted him on the head. "Thank you for your honesty. That's what I value most in people," he said to his son. "Shall we go wash your face, Ricardo?" Carmen glanced at her husband, already sensing that he had something in mind. "Perhaps I won't go to work today." Ramon smiled, nodding to his wife. "Why don't we spend this day as a family?" Carmen looked surprised, but when Ramon kissed her on the cheek, he whispered quietly for her to dress their son, as they should pay a visit. An hour later, they were all riding somewhere together. And although Ricardo asked his parents where they were going, Ramon cheerfully replied with a strange joy in his voice that it was a surprise. Along the way, they stopped at one of the stores, and Ramon bought the largest gift basket with various fruits and treats that was available there. Finally, they arrived at Consuela's house and all knocked on the door together. Miguel opened the door, immediately surprised to see Ramon, as well as his wife and son, on his doorstep. "Good day." Ramon greeted the man with a smile. Very pleased to see you again, Miguel. He extended his hand, and Miguel shook it, still not understanding why they had come. They had only met a few times, and even then, only in passing when Miguel drove Consuela to work. What brings you to our humble abode? Miguel asked, examining the guest's expensive suit. We'd like to see Consuela, Carmen politely smiled. Ricardo misses her, and we wanted to have a chat with her. Who's there, Miguel? Consuela's voice came from inside the house. Consuela! Ricardo exclaimed joyfully, unable to contain himself, and rushed into the house, darting past Miguel. Miguel sighed, smiled at the guests, and gestured for them to follow him inside after the boy. When they entered the living room, they saw Consuela lying on the couch with her leg in a cast, propped up on cushions. Ricardo hugged the woman tightly, and she laughed, seeing the boy visiting. Such joy! Consuela remarked. Hello, Consuela. Ramon approached the woman and placed a voluminous basket on the coffee table. I would like to personally thank you for saving my son. I told them everything. Ricardo grinned. I told them how brave you are, Consuela. How you saved me from falling. Oh, dear boy, it's nothing, we had an agreement. Ramon knelt beside the woman, taking her hand. I can't believe how foolish I was. To dismiss such a loyal woman. Not only did you save my son, but you also kept your word. Such loyalty deserves gratitude, not. Oh, it's nothing really. I'm always glad to help, Ramon. And catching Ricardo was not difficult at all. The most important thing for me is that he wasn't hurt at all. And please, don't punish him for his wrongdoing. It's too late to punish him for climbing the tree. But he should be thanked for his honesty. And you too, for your selfless act. Not many would put themselves at risk for someone else's child. Carmen smiled, observing the scene. Don't worry about anything. Ramon said. Get well soon and make sure to come back to us. I want you to work with us for as long as you can. You've become like a mother to us, and to our son a grandmother. And don't worry about money, I'll raise your salary. Just don't leave us. Please. Overwhelmed by what she heard, Consuela couldn't help but marvel at such warm treatment. She was used to the distant and reserved Ramon, but the man she saw before her at that moment resembled Ricardo Moore's cheerful, with eyes shining brightly with happiness and kindness. She couldn't help but think that Ramon must have been like that in his childhood, kind, responsive, and smiling. Probably, he became more distant due to the nature of his work in the international company, thus becoming more serious. Well then. Consuela sighed with a smile. You all insist so much. I'll return to work, all right. She hugged Ricardo, who smiled joyfully. But only on one condition, Consuela. Ramon raised a finger. First, you must properly rest and heal your injury. I have one condition too. Consuela looked at Carmen and Ramon. Stay for lunch. Miguel is an excellent cook. Her husband smiled, happy for his wife and grateful that these wealthy people appreciated her efforts and sacrifices so highly. They spent the next few hours in merriment and conversation. Ramon would have never thought that he would feel so light and content, even though he missed a day of work. Sitting at the table with Miguel and Consuela, he suddenly felt like a boy returning home to his parents. The incredible ease of conversation, delicious homemade food and pastries, all of it made the man experience long-forgotten memories, and he rejoiced in seeing Carmen and Ricardo truly enjoying this family dinner, laughing and chatting about everything under the sun. Ramon couldn't believe he had always thought of Consuela only as a maid, forced to smile for pay. Now he saw his mistake, realizing she had always been so cheerful and kind, whether she was at work or at home. She showed him that such moments were worth cherishing, and the man vowed to himself that he wouldn't miss them for anything in the world. And as he watched with tenderness and care how Miguel helped his wife, Ramon couldn't help but look at Carmen, resolving that he should show more signs of attention to his own wife and shower her with the love he felt for her. Dear viewers, If you enjoyed the story, please support the video by liking it and leaving a comment. Thank you very much.